Oscars night again, baby. Not quite, but this will go up around the Oscars. As is tradition on this channel, the movies of the previous year are going to be discussed the same weekend as the Oscars. The movies I saw last year, just to be clear, I did not see everything. I didn't even see everything popular, and I also definitely saw a lot of stuff that was not that popular. But that's just how life is on this channel. Of course, I've got some weird soda that I'm gonna clear out. This is the Oreo Coke Zero. It's weird that it was only in Coke Zero. There was no regular Coke. Wow, I don't like that. I kind of don't like that. The Oreo flavor and the Coke flavor do not mix well. Ooh, not into that. The Coke Oreos were good. I really liked the Coke Oreos, but this is, Now, some people have said 2024 was a weaker year for films, and I don't know that I really agree with that. I think there were a lot of really good movies out this year. I think the problem is, this was a year of a lot of 8 out of 10 movies. I have given out so many 8s on this list, probably almost half the list is 8s. And there's, not really that much better than that. The 3 9s I've handed out are not even, super popular movies. Last year, that's another thing, we were spoiled. I think in retrospect, 2023 was a really good year for film. There were so many great movies last year. We got Barbie, Asteroid City, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, American Fiction. It was a really good year last year. And this year, there's no real standouts. There's no one that's head and shoulders above the rest. Everyone's kind of floating around in this 8 out of 10 space. Most of them, at least. Most of the good movies from this year float around that 8 out of 10 space. No, I don't really think I can say it was a weaker year for films. I just think it's a year where, all of the movies were, good. An 8 out of 10's good. It's in fact, even better than good, maybe. It's yeah, that was, a really solid movie. But there's nothing that's, great from this year. Or at least very little that's great from this year. I do want to take this opportunity to talk a little about my movie watching project from the previous year. I kind of meant to bring this up in my year in review, and I didn't, so I'll bring it up here. Last year, I went out of my way to watch movies from as many different countries as I possibly could. I think I got up to 43 or 44, although that is with the caveat that one of the films I watched was from Czechoslovakia, and one of the films I watched was from the Czech Republic, which you might argue is kind of the same country. It's half the same country, I don't know. But I mean, that was really interesting. I found some really interesting stuff through that. You can check out my Letterboxd if you want to know more about all that. This year, my project is to clear out some of the box sets I've got sitting over here. Because, if I have, my whole collection, I have a whole list of movies in my collection on Letterboxd. And if you look, there's, over 600 movies in my collection that I've never watched. But if you look over at my shelves right now, I have maybe 100 loose Blu-rays that I haven't watched. It's not that many. I have very few, single release movies that I haven't watched. It's all the box sets. I have a shitload of box sets, and most of them have at least one, if not many movies I have just never seen. I think there's some I know for a fact there are a few box sets in here that I've just never seen any movie from. I have never sat down and watched one of the movies from these box sets. So that's my project this year, is clearing out some of the box sets I got sitting over here. Although I've stalled out on that a little because I've been watching 2024 movies. It's been 2024 catch up. So since that's what we're here to talk about, let's just dive into the movies of 2024 from worst to best, starting with the worst movie I saw from 2024, Best Picture nominee Emilia Perez. I have done shorts on all the Best Picture nominees I finished, and I kind of went pretty hard on this one in that, and rightfully so, I think. I do want to make clear, I don't think this is like the worst thing I have ever seen. I think maybe some of the hate to it has been a little overblown. And I mean, probably that's in part because it's getting so, like, weirdly praised by Hollywood. They really like it in Hollywood. It's winning all these awards shows, it's nominated for so many Oscars, and it sucks. So I think people are sort of overreacting a little. They're sort of overly hating on this movie because it doesn't deserve all the accolades it's getting. And I agree, it does not deserve to be up for Best Picture. It does not deserve most of the Oscar nominations it's got. I'll accept Best Original Song for El Mal. That's, not the other one, not the fucking Selena Gomez one, but El Mal, easily the best song of this movie, and honestly one of the better original song nominees. It also ties into nothing in the movie. I said this in my short. She's up singing about like, ooh, oh, there's all this corruption, but we're gonna take you down. Yeah, we're gonna take all of you down. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in this movie. That's not what the rest of the movie's about. And frankly, I almost feel like that should be what the rest of the movie is about, and it just isn't. Like, okay, let's talk about the trans representation in this film, because I don't think it's, like, horrible. Not good, certainly. I could certainly name better trans representation. I'm going to talk about better trans representation on this list. But I don't know, it's respectful enough. It is certainly not a transphobic movie. It is certainly trying to be a very, like, nice pro-trans movie. Hold on, I gotta balance the shot a little better. There we go. Get the symmetry right. Come on. Wes Anderson would be ashamed of me. I suppose I could see some people taking issue with the fact that the single trans character in this film is also, like, a violent, dangerous criminal who is using her transition to, kind of escape the law on this one. Granted, what the movie I think is trying to do, and what it maybe should have done a better job at doing, is that it's about, like, a guy who grew up in, like, very bad circumstances, who was forced into this, like, awful life of crime, and now she's trying to escape that. She's trying to become the person she's always wanted to be inside, and she's doing what she can to, like, try to help the victims of this criminal organization she's grown up under. And that definitely needed to be more developed in the film, but like, I recognize that is what they are trying to do here. Because I've seen people, like, sort of gawk at the fact that she's, like, a former cartel member, but, like, she makes very clear she was not happy in that life. She makes very clear that was, like, not something she ever wanted. It was something she was forced into, and I think the movie really should have done a better job conveying that, and maybe the ending should have been more about her, like, actually fighting the cartel instead of spiraling out into this, like, Selena Gomez new husband drama that it ends up being. Also, I saw a meme yesterday about the ending of Emilia Perez, and it just hit me. I'm like, oh yeah, I, like, completely forgot. The ending of this movie is so pointless and kinda stupid. Like, I kinda don't want to spoil it, but at the same time, I don't really think you should watch this movie. But, spoilers, just in case that's a problem for you. It just ends with, like, she's in the trunk of the car with her ex-wife, Selena Gomez, and her new husband, and, like, Selena Gomez tries to get the husband to pull over, but then he just drives off a cliff and they all die. And that's it. That's the end of the movie. It's what? Well, okay. There is a scene after that where like the people are like praising Saint Emilia for her glorious work helping the community, which again the movie really needed to spend more time on. But I mean, the final scene I do kind of like. I kind of get where that's going. But like, why did everyone just die? It's not even like a dramatic death. It just happens. It's so out of nowhere. You're just kind of like, what? What? But again, I don't think this is the worst thing. I think this would be a pretty, like, boring, mediocre drama, like a 5 or 6 out of 10 drama. It really is the musical numbers that drag this down, because the music in this is awful. A lot of it is kind of like talk singing or whisper singing. It's characters trying to have a conversation, but they're doing it on rhythm, and it kind of rhymes sometimes. And it feels like they're never committing to a song. It feels like it feels like a lot of their attempts at songs are kind of half-assed. A lot of them, it's like, is the song starting yet? Are we starting to... Okay, we're in the song now, I guess. And also, so many of them just stop. Like, so many of them do not have an ending. They just stop. The sex change song is like that. The sex change song just stops. Granted, they do at least commit to singing that one, although maybe they shouldn't, because it's fucking terrible. Like, I remember a few years ago that clip of Marriage Story went viral on Twitter, and I don't know why, because it was honestly, like, a pretty good scene. Even out of context, I don't really see why people would be upset with that, but once you've seen it in context, it's like, no, this is, like, an extremely pivotal moment to the film. Why are we mocking this? This year, the sex change song from Emilia Perez has gone viral on Twitter, from people making fun of it. And you know what? Deserved. It's an awful fucking song. I have heard the argument of like, oh, it's not taking itself that seriously. Why are you hating on this? First off, the rest of the movie takes itself seriously. It's extremely weird to have this, like, kinda comedic number about sex changes in the middle of this otherwise fairly grounded, serious drama. It feels very tonally out of place. Also, the song just sucks. Like, you can be funny, you can, like, not take yourself seriously and do a kinda goofy song, but it's gotta be a good song. The song just fucking sucks. It's a bad song. The lyrics suck. The music is kind of forgettable. The visuals are really good. I actually do have to give the film some credit. The visuals in this film, especially during the musical numbers, are pretty good. But the song is not good, the lyrics are not good, the jokes are not funny. It's just, that's another thing. Like, okay, it's not taking itself seriously. It's also not funny. It's really not funny. Oh my god, it is so painfully unfunny. The sex change song is the point where I went from, like, I'm keeping an open mind, this could still be something, to, okay, this is the worst movie I've seen all year. Granted, I did not watch a lot of bad ones. Like, we're already up to 4 out of 10. Last year I still had, like, a Lady Ballers and probably 1 or 2 other movies. I think I had a Saw movie to get through. I didn't watch a lot of bad movies from 2024, actually. Like, this is the worst thing I watched, and it's up for Best Picture, so... Granted, Don't Look Up might have been the worst thing I watched. The year Don't Look Up came out, and you know what? That was also up for Best Picture. I said in my short on this that it's the second worst Best Picture nominee of the decade behind Don't Look Up, and the things it has over Don't Look Up are that it's not as annoyingly edited. It's actually pretty well edited, I think, and that the message is not as trite, it is not as played out. I would like to add a third thing to that, which is that Don't Look Up is a celebrity comedy. It's celebrities just kind of like, ooh, look at us, we're celebrities, but we're doing some quirky comedy. It's so funny to see all your favorite celebrities doing the quirky comedy. Wink, wink at the camera, which at least Emilia Perez does not have. So yeah, Don't Look Up, vastly worse movie than Emilia Perez. I will give Emilia Perez the victory on this one. It is only the second worst Best Picture nominee from this decade. And I mean, if we expand past this decade, I can think of plenty of movies that have been up for Best Picture, that have won Best Picture, that are worse than this. This is better than Shakespeare in Love. Like, fuck you. This is better than Shakespeare in Love. Better than Green Book. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. It could end up bottom 10 Best Picture nominees of all time. Although, it's on course, like, it could win. It could actually win. Oh, hello. Granted, there is a chance of this one winning. This has really high odds of winning Best Picture this year, so it could go down as, like, bottom 3 Best Picture winners of all time. I would still certainly stack it up over Shakespeare in Love and Green Book, but I can't think of too many other Best Picture winners I would put below this. Maybe some of, like, the really old stuff that I haven't really seen, but I've seen, like, every Best Picture winner from, like, the 90s onward, and I would put this below pretty much everything. Anyways, there's me whinging about Emilia Perez for, like, 10 minutes. Let's move on to another movie. Christ, we gotta be faster than that. Deadpool and Wolverine, which I keep wanting to call Deadpool X Wolverine. I think in part because we just got Sonic X Shadow Generations, but also, like, they're the X-Men, he's crossing the swords on the photo, and that's just a joke Deadpool would do. They would call it Deadpool X Wolverine. I don't really know why they didn't. This is kind of a disappointment from someone who enjoyed the first 2 Deadpool movies. They have really taken a dip in quality with this one. Granted, weirdly, like, I remember when the first Deadpool came out, and I was, like, so hyped for that. This was, like, some of the most excited I had ever been for a movie. When the first Deadpool came out, I'm like, yes, finally, my guy Deadpool, he's getting a movie, and here we are, now 8 years later, and I did not have any enthusiasm for this movie. I really only went to go see it because Mitzi wanted to go see it. I probably would have skipped this one otherwise. It's not bad, but I got, like, 2 laughs out of this movie. I laughed when Elektra showed up, as someone who has long held that Elektra is the worst Marvel movie of all time. I also thought it was funny when Blade said, there's one Blade and there's only ever gonna be one Blade, because, haha, Marvel can't make a Blade movie. Honestly, I don't know why the MCU is still ongoing at this point, and I will give Deadpool the slightest bit of credit for, like, knocking where the MCU is right now. I don't mind the story so much. It's one big meta gag, but, like, that kind of works for Deadpool. You can kind of just do that for Deadpool. But again, like, I barely laughed at it. There's, like, hardly any jokes in this. And, like, my God, the vulgarity in this film, it just doesn't work. It's, like, high school level insults. It's on the level of, like, the kid at my high school who told me he was gonna punch me in my uterus and strangle me with my fallopian tubes. Like, that's the level we're on with this fucking movie. It's just like, oh, we said the most insanely vulgar thing we could think of. And it's like, yeah, but it's all high school level garbage. And then every time they have to sort of wink at the camera like, and this is a Disney movie. The action's good. That's the only reason this is as high as it is. The action is pretty decent in this, actually. I didn't laugh much. They sidelined the characters from the first two movies so hard. That's the thing. Like, this really does not feel at all like a conclusion to the Deadpool movies. Or even like a continuation of the Deadpool movies. Like, it feels really disconnected from Deadpool 1 and 2. They sideline the other characters from those movies so hard. I think there is something deeply ironic about the fact that Deadpool 2 established a canon lesbian couple, and then this movie didn't have a single scene that acknowledged that they were lesbians. In fact, I'm pretty sure Negasonic Teenage Warhead didn't even have a line. I am pretty confident she has 0 lines in this movie. Maybe she has 1 and I missed it, but I'm pretty confident she has 0 lines in this movie. Also, I just want to refer to my Letterboxd review on this one, where I humorously referred to it as Superhero Movie 2. And I felt that way the second Johnny Blaze fell out of the air and hit his nuts on a bar. It's like, haha, the superhero fell out of the sky, hit his nuts. That's a superhero movie joke. That is a joke superhero movie would do. And that's this whole movie. That's this whole movie, man. It's superhero movie level humor. And references, and callbacks, and haha, it's this character, remember this character. I don't know. It wasn't horrible, I don't hate it, but like, Christ am I disappointed. I liked the first 2 Deadpool movies. Moving right along, we got the new Street Trash remake, and let me tell you, this one also disappointed me, because I love Street Trash, and I love Ryan Coogler's previous film, Fried Berry, and this was kind of a letdown in comparison. I feel like in trying to modernize it, they take it too far from the source material. It no longer feels like a Street Trash movie. Like, the only thing Street Trash about this is the fact that when they're melting, they spew all this neon-colored paint. That is the one similarity it has to Street Trash. Because Street Trash is about, like, a liquor that will melt you. It's like an evil liquor that melts homeless people, but then, in this movie, it's a gas. It's a gas that melts homeless people. And I don't know why you would need the Street Trash, like, formula for that, because there are plenty of gases that just kill people already. You don't need to melt them. Why are we going out of our way for this? Also, like, a lot of the humor in this is really juvenile. It is some really lowbrow stuff in this. All while it's also trying to, like, have a message, and, like, don't get me wrong, I kind of agree with the message of this film. I just can't really take it seriously because it's a fucking Street Trash remake, and you keep doing these extremely lowbrow bits about, like, oh yeah, Geppetto, he was a pedophile, he wanted to fuck Pinocchio. Peter Pan, he's a pedophile, he's taking kids away from their parents, and like, shut up, it's not funny. It's not funny. I don't know, there was stuff I liked about it. The effects are good, for one thing. The practical effects that look just like the effects in Street Trash. Granted, I could also just watch Street Trash, which is a better movie, but yeah, I mean, good effects. I like the characters well enough. I like the homeless community. In this movie, all the characters are kind of fun and interesting in their own right. I think it's funny that there's a running gag that there's one character who only has POV shots. You only see him, like, sticking out his hand and going, yeah, thumbs up. You never see his, like, face or anything. I don't know. It's like, it's not the worst movie. I've given it a 6. This is above average. But, not particularly good either. This one's kinda, I have seen better. I have seen better from Ryan Coogler, and I have seen better street trash movies. So, can't really recommend this one. Immaculate, a movie I only saw because they advertised themselves as like, ooh, look, the people are getting so offended by our movie. Come look at our edgy, offensive movie. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. And so Sydney Sweeney is a nun, and she gets hit with a generic ass curse. All of the stuff that has happened to every character who has ever been cursed in a movie for the last 20 years starts happening. Her hair's falling out, her nails are falling out, she has random jump scare visions, she's haunted by these weird dreams. It's all so generic. It's all stuff we have seen before, and I'm like, okay. What really saves it, I think, is the ending. Because the ending is kind of fascinating. You find out the spoilers for Immaculate if you care, but like, the only good part of this movie is the twist, so I'm just gonna explain the twist to you, because it is the best part of the movie. The twist is that this nunnery she's staying at, they have like one of the nails that was used to nail Jesus to the cross, and they've taken like the DNA out of that, and they're attempting to clone Jesus, and they've injected her with like because the whole thing is like, oh, she's suddenly like pregnant, immaculate conception, look at that. But it turns out they just have like this crazy science lab where they're trying to clone Jesus. And they've decided to use Sydney Sweeney's womb to bring him into the world. And that bit is quite fascinating, actually. The final third of this movie is where it gets actually kind of interesting. But at that point, like, I don't know, kind of too little too late, if I'm being honest. I don't dislike it. I like that ending well enough that I'm kind of like, wasn't too bad. But, certainly not something I would watch again. Not really something I'm recommending to anyone. People are obsessed with Sydney Sweeney right now, and like, I just gotta be honest. She is hot in the most boring way possible. Like, oh wow, you got a 20-something blonde with huge tits. Congrats. Like, of course that's hot. That's the most boring way to be hot. Come on. We've seen it. It's been done. I don't know. I was not horribly impressed with Immaculate, but, you know, it was certainly a way to kill an hour and a half. It was short. It was a breezy little picture. I good pacing on this one. Like, for as generic and predictable as it is, good pacing. Good pacing. It keeps going fast enough, but still not something I'm really recommending. Beetlejuice's sequel. I saw this one with Mitzi, who is obsessed with Beetlejuice. We did a video about it. I'll link it. I'm using my psychic powers. It's in this corner. If it's not in this corner, I'm just gonna reverse the shot. Okay. There's a card to us talking about Beetlejuice. I did say then, I'm like, you know, I kind of enjoyed watching it, but I do kind of want to see how it sits with me. And I think after it has sat with me for some time, and most especially, Mitzi took me to see Beetlejuice the Musical. So, having seen Beetlejuice the Musical, I think Beetlejuice the Musical actually does a lot of stuff that Beetlejuice is trying to do better than Beetlejuice. So, having now seen the musical, which I highly recommend, like, I love the original Beetlejuice. The musical, there's an argument to be made the musical is better. I really liked the musical. So if they're doing Beetlejuice the Musical near you, I recommend it. I really enjoyed Beetlejuice the Musical, but I think it has made me enjoy Beetlejuice a little bit less, because there's a lot of stuff this movie does that the play does better. For one thing, like, going into the spirit world and trying to find a lost relative, it does a lot better. That's a major thing. This movie, there's so much stuff that gets set up that, like, I feel like is not that consequential in the long run. They introduce Beetlejuice's ex-wife, and it's like, okay, she's hot, cool character design. She doesn't do anything! She doesn't fucking do anything! And I even said this the first time I reviewed it. Yeah, I don't know. It's, like, not terrible. It's a decent little movie, but, it could be more. It could certainly be more. I do respect it for being its own thing. Like, it had the balls to just be its own thing, and I do appreciate that. I feel like way too many legacy sequels and remakes like this spend the whole movie looking over their shoulder for the approval of, like, remember the first movie? It's like the first movie? They don't do that in this movie. It has the balls to be its own thing, which is nice. But not a great movie. Not something I'm, like, rushing to ever rewatch. I will certainly watch Beetlejuice 1 many times over without even thinking about this movie. I feel like it would be better if it wasn't Coke Zero. I feel like if I had real Oreo Coke, it would be better. This next movie, yo, totally Wicked. I did a short covering Wicked, and I think that about covers my thoughts on it. I don't know that I have much more to say about it. I hate how ugly the colors are. Although my partner challenged me on this, and I did concede, like, okay, during the popular song, which I think was one of the better songs of the film, during the popular song, there is a part where Galinda makes, like, everything pink. Everything becomes this, like, nice hot pink color. And I'm like, yeah, that was, like, one moment in the film where the colors were really good. You needed a lot more of that. It's like one fucking shot where the colors look nice. And even then, it's just because they made everything bright, hot pink. Like, it just doesn't work. It just, you needed better colors in this movie. Give me some goddamn color, please, for the love of God. So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, man, even Oz the Great and Powerful looked better than this. And then I'm like, you know what? I remember when I saw that movie, I think the visuals were one of the highlights of the film. Boring-ass movie. Boring-ass movie. But really good visuals. Really good visuals in Oz the Great and Powerful. And, like, if you could have just replicated that in Wicked, Wicked has a much better script, a much better story, much better characters. It's a much more interesting film. It needs the visual flair that Oz the Great and Powerful had. I think that would push it up a little more for me if it had, like, that really nice, like, Oz the Great and Powerful visual style, or even just something more reminiscent of the original Wizard of Oz. Honestly, like, the sets on the original Wizard of Oz are, like, a little cheap, a little dingy, but it would fit, like, the musical. It would fit with a musical. It would fit with something that is previously a stage show. You could just kind of go for, like, a stage show / like, original Wizard of Oz look, you know? Like, maybe make the sets look a little cheap, but, you know, it looks like a stage production. It looks like the original Wizard of Oz. I'm just spitballing here. It probably would be better to go for something more like Oz the Great and Powerful. I think audiences would respond to that a little better. I don't even mind you having muted colors in places. It needs to, like, blossom into something more at some point, and it never really does. But, I mean, I appreciate the story, I appreciate the characters, I appreciate the dialogue, I appreciate that the Academy is eating this up, even though it is, like, pretty obviously critical of liberals and liberal complacency. Galinda with her, like, completely hollow, like, oh, I'm now going to be changing the pronunciation of my name in honor of the goat that got taken away. But when she's, like, face to face with the people actually doing the goat genocide, she just kind of lets it happen. So, you know, this is like a great satire of liberals, and I don't think the liberals get it. But there is a lot of stuff holding me back. The colors, some of the songs I thought were really generic. Not all of them. There were songs I liked. Plenty of songs in this that I liked. Some of them I thought were a little generic. Performances were good, but I did, like, the story feels awkwardly paced. I said this in my video. It's because it's a part 1. I get that it's a part 1 and that we're gonna get Wicked part 2 later, but it just feels like rising action and rising action and rising action and rising action and rising action, and then finally, like, just a little past the 2-hour mark, we get, like, a climax. Something resembling a climax for this part 1 movie. It ended in a good place. I do think that was the right place to end this if you were doing a part 1. But it needed to be shorter, frankly. It needed to be, like, a little bit shorter. Because it's too much. It is too much rising action. But I don't know. I didn't hate it. Didn't love it, but didn't hate it. The Substance, another one I already talked about because it's up for Best Picture, and I kind of talked about how I wasn't that into it, even though a lot of people seem to like this one. I don't. I'm just not that into it. It is so blunt with its messaging. It just bashes you over the head with it over and over again. And, like, I'm not even sure I agree. Like, I get that on the one hand, this is sort of about, like, Hollywood's shallow beauty standards and how, like, women are always trying to conform to these, like, extremely restrictive beauty standards. And like, this, like, weird cultural idea that, like, youth is the be-all, end-all of beauty. Which I think, frankly, the film disproves a little bit by casting Demi Moore, who is kind of too hot for this role. Like, listen, this is maybe too much information. This is maybe a little, you're learning a little too much about Matt here. After the end of this movie, I did not think of the younger girl's nude scenes at all. The nude scene that stuck in my head was Demi Moore's. I was thinking about Demi Moore all day that day. Maybe I'm just weird. Maybe I'm just a little too into older women, but frankly, I thought Demi Moore was a little too hot for this picture. But I don't know, like, its specific attack on, like, you know, cosmetic surgery, like, I get it. It's a fraught subject. There's, like, It exists because of our shallow beauty standards. It exists because of, like, the capitalistic need to charge people to look good. At the same time, I think people have the right to do to their body whatever they want to do to their body. Like, I do think there is an extent to which we should acknowledge the social pressure and say, like, hey, ignore the social pressure, like, you do not have to do this if you do not want to do this. But at the same time, I think people should be allowed to get cosmetic surgery if they want to. I think people should be allowed to get plastic surgery. It's harmless. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Of course, the movie is gonna play this as like, oh yeah, but if you get all that, like, cosmetic surgery, you're gonna look even uglier. You're gonna look super disgusting. It's just, I don't know. It feels like the film is shaming women a little too much. It's directed by a woman, fair enough. I'm not a woman. Maybe women feel differently about this, but I just kind of felt like it was shaming women a little more than, like, it was pretending to. It was pretending to be this, like, strong feminist thing, and really it feels like it's just shaming women. And it just ends too much. Like, there are too many endings to this. I teased this in the video. Here's my spoiler review of The Substance, okay? So you get to the point where, like, she has to go back to Demi Moore's body, and Demi Moore is, like, super decrepit and old now, because it is, of course, a rule that, like, if you don't switch back, like, the more time you take from this other person, the more they're going to age. And so you have that moment, and I'm like, oh, there it is, the big, like, Twilight Zone moment. She's be careful what you wish for, because this is what you've gotten. But then it keeps going. It keeps going for like 40 fucking minutes after that. So then, like, it's going on, like, she and the other girl, she's trying to, like, still be the other girl for at least this, like, one last New Year's Eve performance. And then as the other girl, she's like, oh, bad things are happening to me. I'm starting to look too ugly. I need the substance. And then, but of course, you know, using the substance on a substance clone, she becomes this horrifying, gross beast. And you're like, oh, there it is. There's the big evil reveal. Nope. No, it's still going. We still got another, like, 20 minutes left of this. And so, you know, she comes out on stage as this big, ugly monster thing, and everyone's scared of her. And you're like, okay, here it is. Here's the end. Her coming out on stage as this big, horrifying monster thing. No, it has to keep going just a little bit long. It's like, oh my god, stop. End. Way too long a movie. I do like the monster effects. The monster effects are great. I like the weird, gross, drippy stuff at the end. Granted, it comes, way too late and is in service of a film that I have already completely lost patience with. I do like Randy Quaid in this. Randy Quaid is the clear highlight of this film. He is fucking hilarious in this movie. Weird that he would play two extremely powerful showbiz people with disgusting beliefs in 1 year. So yeah, I mean, like, there's stuff I like about The Substance. I am not, like, completely dismissing The Substance. I just also have a lot of issues with it, and I think it's weird that it is as highly praised as it is. That feels weird that I'm on the opposite side of this, because so often it's these weird, gross body horror things that I'm, like, really into, and everyone else is like, ooh, oh, I don't want any of that. And so it feels kind of weird that everyone is praising this gross body horror film, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I wasn't that into it. It's just weird. It's not on brand. Like, this feels like something I should be into, and I'm just not. I don't know, maybe that's part of why I'm on the other side of this, is because I have seen so many other, like, gross, fucked up body horror films that I think are way better. And, like, you people have been ignoring them forever, and ignoring me forever. And it's weird that this one is approved of by the Academy. I said that in my short on it, but, like, I don't think, like, any horror film, any gross, fucked up horror film that the Academy approves of is probably not gonna be that good. I don't know. I wasn't that into The Substance, weirdly enough. Seems like something I should be into, but I just wasn't. Yeesh. I think that's about all I can take of that. Yeah. This is not Nuka-Cola. It's Nuka Victory Cola. So, it's peach flavored. It's not cola flavored. That's not bad. Granted, it has been sitting in my fridge for a long time now, and I can kind of tell. But, not bad. And hey, this is, from a video game, and that's a great transition to this next movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And Knuckles. I didn't actually watch And Knuckles, remove that. Anyways, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. My god, this franchise has managed to turn itself around, hasn't it? Like, I remember that first trailer and going like, oh, this is gonna be awful. Because, for one thing, there was Ugly Sonic, and to their credit, I think changing Ugly Sonic has done a lot for this franchise. But also, the first movie just had such a generic story, and it's a story that I actually don't like, where the character from, like, this cool magical world comes to the boring real world and has to deal with boring real world problems, and it's like, fuck you, stay in Sonic's world. But I think they have course corrected about as well as they can, because I thought the second one was a much better film, and I thought the third one was even better than that. Each subsequent Sonic movie becomes the best theatrically released video game movie. So maybe by the fourth one, they'll top themselves once again. Like, I do think, like, this one follows the second one closely enough that the first one just feels so distant. The first one feels kinda disconnected at this point, because 2 and 3 feel really similar, and it feels like they are deliberately avoiding being the first one. Of course, I appreciate that this one is based on Sonic Adventure 2, and that it has Shadow, my favorite. Shadow is both ironically and unironically my favorite Sonic character. When they do him right, he is a great character. I think he is easily the best written Sonic character when they do him right. When they do him wrong, he's hilariously edgy, so it's kind of just a toss-up on which one of those you're gonna get. The worst thing they do with him is introduce him and then do nothing with him. Like, that is the worst thing you can do with Shadow the Hedgehog, is just do nothing with him. And this movie, I'm happy to say, actually does quite a lot with him. I even like all the visual nods to the Shadow the Hedgehog game in this. I think that's funny that they use some Shadow the Hedgehog shots in this. And I mean, the movie's just fun. I don't really have anything that negative to say about it. I think the pacing's maybe a little weird, but not even as weird as the first two, so I can't even complain too much on that. I love Jim Carrey as Robotnik and Gerald. I love Agent Stone. I think they're just great characters to follow. I think they do a great job with Maria in this movie. Honestly, they might actually have improved Maria and Shadow's story a little bit. It feels like there's more of a connection between them here. It feels like Shadow, feels more like a weird outcast, and she's the one there who, like, really believes in him. And they really play well with that at the film's climax. I like the ways this ties into the film's finale, like, really works. I think really the only thing I think is kind of weird is that, like, Knuckles and Tails are so insistent to Sonic that, like, no, Sonic, no, you can't take the Chaos Emeralds. But without the Chaos Emeralds, there was no chance of him, like, winning this. He did, in fact, need to get the Chaos Emeralds. I like how they threw Wade Whipple into this. Like, it ties back to the Knuckles series, but you also don't have to have seen the Knuckles series to get it. I don't know, they just did a good job with this one all around. I was really into it. Not a great movie or anything. It is still Sonic the Hedgehog, but, like, it's a fun way to spend an hour and a half. It's a fun little time. Go out to the movies, make a day of it. It'll be a good time. It's not in theaters anymore. I'm sure it's on Paramount Plus by now. But you know what? Throw it on Paramount Plus. Make an evening out of it. It's a fun way to spend an hour and a half. I don't think I'll probably ever rewatch it, but I'm glad I watched it the once. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl. It's fine. I think the jokes are a tad slow-paced, and the whole thing is a little thin. Like, I don't even know if this hits 80 minutes. It feels like there's not that much to this one, and I'm kind of okay with that. I'm kind of okay with them keeping it simple, but, like, I don't know, when this came out, there were a lot of people coming out of the woodworks to go like, oh, well, it's not a Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And as someone who hasn't actually watched Curse of the Were-Rabbit, I'm like, well, I guess I should go back and check that one out. And Curse of the Were-Rabbit is a much better film than this one, frankly. It's got a lot more going on. I feel like It's not quite so thin. It feels like there's more jokes. It feels like the story is more grand. It feels like Wallace and Gromit have a little more to do in that one. Also, this one is built on, The Wrong Trousers. It's a follow-up to The Wrong Trousers with Feathers McGraw escaping jail, and it's not as funny as The Wrong Trousers. There's a reason The Wrong Trousers was only 30 minutes, honestly. I feel like you probably could have made this film even shorter if you had wanted to, and it'd probably be better because the jokes would probably be a little better paced. I feel like the jokes are all good. I like all the jokes. There's just not enough of them. I don't know. Certainly not a bad film. Certainly an enjoyable little movie. But I don't know. I feel like it could have been more. I feel like there's a lot more potential with these characters. I think Curse of the Were-Rabbit proves there's a lot more potential with these characters. But, if you're just gonna make a 75-minute straight-to-streaming movie that reuses the character from, one of the classic old shorts, alright, yeah, this is fine. You like Wallace and Gromit? Here you go. Here's some Wallace and Gromit. Why not? Trap. A part of me wants to say M. Night has made another good movie, and a part of me is like, no, the fuck he didn't. This movie flip-flops so hard between, genuinely kinda clever and extremely goofy. It's so easy to poke holes in this movie. It is so easy to point at, everything in this movie and go, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. And even just kind of look at some of the stuff that's happening and you're like, well, that's really silly, that's really goofy, that's a little over the top. At the same time, I don't know, there's stuff about the film that does actually work. I think having this thriller about a criminal trapped at a concert is fairly interesting. I don't think it loses too much steam when it moves away from the concert, but I was a little disappointed because I'm having him trapped in this enclosed space really works for the story, for the thriller angle of it. Granted, I don't mind that they leave. I think it's still pretty good after that point. But, man, it goes back and forth between, actually good and, enjoyably bad. But you know what? I will take enjoyably bad Shyamalan over boring Shyamalan any day. There's a reason The Happening is one of my favorite films from him. Because it's actually funny. Right? Fucking After Earth is one of the most boring movies I have ever seen. Most mind-numbingly boring movies I have ever seen. Ditto Last Airbender, and that, even had a good show to work off of, and it's still fucking boring as shit. Yeah, no, give me silly Shyamalan. Give me Shyamalan doing something just unabashedly over the top. My God, I love Josh Hartnell in this movie. He is so weird. He is so perfect. He gave certainly the most memorable performance of the year. I don't know that I could argue he gave the best performance of the year by any means, but he gave the most memorable performance of the year. I really enjoyed Trap in a way I have not really enjoyed Shyamalan's movies in a while. Granted, I missed his last two. I haven't actually seen The Beach That Makes You Old or whatever Knock at the Cabin is. I didn't even know that was a Shyamalan film. I saw a trailer for it. And then I'm like, oh, that was Shyamalan? The fuck? So maybe I should go back and check those two out, but Trap is a step in the right direction for him. I would rather see him make movies like Trap than movies like The Visit, or Last Airbender, or After Earth, or even, Glass. It is also, a little funny that he built this whole, thriller around, oh yeah, they're going to see a concert from this world-dominating pop star, and the world-dominating pop star is his own daughter. There's a little bit of nepotism in there, but I kind of appreciate it. Also, his daughter is, like, perfect in this role. Like, she is a genuinely good singer, and when she's forced to act later in the movie, it also works. So, yeah, like... It's a little nepotistic, but you know what? She's good enough, we'll let it slide. Sometimes I just gotta take a break. I get lightheaded if I talk for too long. Here we go. Frankie Freako. This is the new movie from the director of Psycho Goreman. And I love Psycho Goreman so much, I'm like, sure, I'll check out another movie from that guy. And it turns out Frankie Freako is a dead-on parody of a Full Moon movie. Like, it is so obvious that Full Moon is the thing he is pulling from here. There's one of the characters in this I think is even like a deliberate reference to Six Shooter from Puppet Master. It's a very Full Moon-esque movie. Granted, with Psycho Goreman's sense of humor. And also I'm very, very sure Frankie Freako is a take on Freddy Freaker, because, you know, it's a hotline. It's an 80s hotline you call into to talk to some goofy little character. So yeah, I'm very certain his name is Frankie Freako in reference to Freddy Freaker. But I mean, this is a dead-on parody of Full Moon movies, which is great for a guy like me, who is a hardcore Full Moon fanatic, but probably will not play well to most audiences. I don't know that most people will get what he's going for, and I think we'll find most of it a little weird. Not that you can't still get some of the humor from this. I'm sure there are plenty of people who don't know much about Full Moon who will still enjoy how, like, bizarre and goofy this movie is, but it's certainly no Psycho Goreman. It is not a film that I can just blanket recommend to anyone. You need to at least be the type of person who would enjoy Full Moon. I don't think you have to have seen any Full Moon movies to get this, but I do think it helps. There are a lot of, like, visual nods to Full Moon movies. I will also say, in being a Full Moon parody, a lot of the effects in this are not very good, but I think they more than make up for that with the scene where they go to, like, Frankie's home world and they have, like, all this stop motion going on. Like, it's clear they had, like, they knew how to do good visual effects. They just chose not to, because they're doing a Full Moon parody. They made the creatures look like Full Moon creatures. So, definitely less impressive effects than Psycho Goreman, a little more niche than Psycho Goreman, but for me personally, I enjoyed it. I really liked it, and I would fully recommend it to any fanatics of Full Moon pictures, which, if you're on my channel, let's be honest, you probably are. You probably do like Full Moon, or at least vaguely aware of Full Moon and why it's funny. Alright, so since recording this, I have finished I'm Still Here. I recorded a short about it. I stand by the short. I don't know that I really have much else to say on the subject, other than bitching about how impossible this movie is to find. It's just fucking nowhere. I searched up I'm Still Here streaming. It came up on the Apple TV website. I'm like, oh, okay. So I signed up for a free trial of Apple TV Plus. Guess what? They didn't fucking have the movie. Why is it on your website if you don't have the fucking movie, you fucking liars? I hate Apple so much. I hate Apple so much. Like, I hate all corporations, but I hate Apple extra. Like on top of how much I already hate corporations. I hate Apple just, like, a little bit more than all the others. Anyways, I watched I'm Still Here through perfectly legitimate means, and this is where I would rank it. If you want to know my opinions, just watch the short I made. I don't have anything to add. Alright, here we go. This one's a doozy. Megalopolis. I gotta be honest, guys, I kinda liked it. Don't get me wrong, I understand why people would not, but for me it totally worked. There are moments in this film that I think genuinely have good commentary. I also think there's a lot of, Facebook deep stuff in there. Some of which I'm prepared to chalk up as self-critical. Some of it I'm like, okay, he knows this is kind of fake deep and the character is kind of supposed to be fake deep. At the same time, there's definitely some Facebook deep stuff that he meant completely genuinely in this film. But, what really makes it land for me is the editing. This film just has a really good sense of rhythm. Everything hits just like it's supposed to hit. And I think that makes the parts that work really work, and the parts that don't work not stand out so much. I like the story, I like the characters, I like the way everything flows together, I like the commentary on the dilapidated state of the American Empire. I think it's a really good illustration of our society. I do think the film's politics are kinda center-left, liberal, but maybe not committed to the liberal, so it's the Democrat Party, just kind of centrist leaning liberal. But also I think the politics of this film are vague enough that anyone can kind of come away and just slot their own beliefs into some of these scenes. I also have to admit the visual style, it's interesting. It's interesting that he went that way with it, but it looks like a music video. It looks like a music video from the early 2000s. In fact, I saw someone post a clip of clips of this movie edited into Linkin Park's oh shoot. In the end, it doesn't even matter. What it meant to be will eventually be a memory of a time I tried so hard and got so far. I think that's just called The End, isn't it? That's the real name of the song. Anyway, they edited it into that music video, and it fucking works. It just fucking works. I am not blind to the criticisms of this movie. I get why people don't like this movie. I actually seem to be in the minority on kinda liking it. My opinion is it's above average, pretty decent. I know people who hate it. I know people who love it. I know people who are right in the middle on it. I seem to be one of the few people that are kinda mostly on the positive side. We're not exactly in the middle, but not all the way to oh, this is a 10 out of 10 over here. And it's 7, 8-ish out of 10, that range. I didn't say this, but I am still doing the Fantano style, light 6, 6, strong 6. But you probably figured that out by now already. And I would give Megalopolis a strong 7. It is pretty good. It also has some pretty major flaws, but I can live with that. I enjoyed it well enough. I would love to revisit this film. I think it's fun that Gus Fring and Shia LaBeouf are in a movie together. The cast in this movie is actually really funny. I really like the cast of this movie. Fucking Jon Voight's in there, and he hasn't been in anything decent in decades. Here he is in Francis Ford Coppola's big independent production. Props to Coppola for just going I'm fucking loaded, fuck the studios, I'm just gonna make my movie my way. I respect the process on this one. That's the thing. I definitely respect this movie. I have no contempt for this movie. I see its flaws. I mostly enjoy it, and I respect the hell out of what it is. So, yeah, you know what? count me on the positive side with Megalopolis. The Nickel Boys. I talked about this one in my shorts, and I don't really know that I have much to add. It's a pretty good movie. I do kind of want to see how it's gonna sit with me, because like I said in that video, there are like Oscar nominees from like 2016, 2017 that I liked back then and that I'm looking back at now and I'm like, oh fuck that movie. I have not thought about that movie in like 8 years. Is that even still good? Would I still enjoy that if I rewatched it? So there's a possibility I would not like this movie as much if I watched it like if I, like, 5-10 years down the road, I might not like the Nickel Boys as much as I do right now. But right now, I enjoy it pretty well. I think it's a pretty good movie. I really appreciate what the Nickel Boys is, what it's trying to do. I really like the style. Like I said in that video, the style is really what elevates it, because otherwise it is kind of an Oscar baity story. I will say the one criticism that I intended to bring up in that short and then just kind of forgot to, I do kind of think the film almost lets white audiences off the hook too much by setting this, like, at the end of segregation, around the end of segregation. It kind of gives white people the distance to be like, oh, that's something we did in the past. This is all behind us now. No, the fuck it's not. But, I don't know. It works. For what it is, it works. I really like the style. I had a good time watching this one. I don't have anything else to add that wasn't already in the short. Just watch my short on it. I'd like to point out that we're already to the ones I've given an 8 to, and there's 19 movies left, and I've only given 3 films a 9. So that's 16 8 out of 10s on a list of 31 movies. But yeah, that's how many 8 out of 10s there were this year. Like half this list is an 8 out of 10 film. I got another one I finished before the video was done. It's A Real Pain. I really liked this one. It feels very real. These feel like very real characters. Kieran Culkin especially. I really like Kieran Culkin's character. I like Jesse Eisenberg's character too. I think both of them are very important to this story, but Culkin is the clear standout. He's honestly my front runner for best supporting actor. It's just such a weird, like, it's such a nice blend of tragedy and comedy in this film. There's like some real deep moments, but there's also some really funny moments, some really like ridiculous moments, a lot of awkward humor. I will say, personally, I'm not like the biggest fan of awkward humor, and I did find this film a little hard to sit through in places. Now, I think that's what the film's going for. I think it's supposed to be uncomfortable in places, but I think it all really comes together in the end, enough that I can kind of tough it out through the rougher moments, through the really awkward moments. So yeah, A Real Pain. I kind of recommend this one. It's a good movie. Lisa Frankenstein. This was a fun movie, and I kind of think it did not get the attention it deserved, because it is a really fun one. It feels like 80s Tim Burton, but horny. Like, Tim Burton is, like, not that horny a director. Not typically. He has his moments, but, like, he is not traditionally that horny a director. This is a horny movie, but otherwise feels very 80s Tim Burton. Like, you know, lots of bright colors, weird kind of macabre thing about like this outsider girl and this like outsider dude who's dead that she has a crush on, and the way she discovers to like bring him back to life, make him more animate, make him a more fleshed out human being, pun intended. I don't know, it's a fun little story. I really enjoyed this one. Fun performances, fun colors, which is kind of rare nowadays. I liked the color in this movie. I liked whichever Sprouse twin it was in this movie. I think it's the same Sprouse twin as Riverdale. One of them went to college, and one of them is on Riverdale. And I think the one on Riverdale is also in this movie. Good year for fucking Disney Channel stars. 2024, the former Disney Channel stars are really, like, coming out of the woodworks this year. Doing some good stuff, doing some good work. And yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's a fun, macabre little movie. Like some dark-ish humor, but like, for the most part, it's pretty light for a film about reanimating a corpse. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this one a lot. In a Violent Nature, my fucking god, cinephiles today are so fucking easy. Just give them some slow, moody plotting, punctuated by moments of extreme violence, and they will gobble that shit up. I am not excluding myself from this. I fucking love this movie. Like, this, it feels like, it almost doesn't even feel like it's trying to parody Friday the 13th. It almost wants to be a Friday the 13th film, and you know what? Fucking let it. As far as I'm concerned, this is the 13th Friday the 13th movie. It infuriates me to no end that there are 12 Friday the 13th movies, including the remake. That maybe shouldn't count. Also counting Freddy vs. Jason, that also maybe shouldn't count. But still, 12 movies in the 13 franchise. Give us one more. Give us one more. Literally, whoever owns the rights to Friday the 13th, I think it's Paramount. I don't want to work with Paramount. But you know what? For Friday the 13th, I'll do it. Let me write Friday the 13th Part 13 for you. I have a better name for it than that. We just call it The 13th. Brilliant. Because it's the 13th movie, and it's a reference to the original title, Friday the 13th. Anyways, In a Violent Nature kind of pretends it's like a movie in a franchise like Friday the 13th, even though it's not, and that's kind of funny. And it's also kind of funny that they've made it this, like, slow kind of plotting art film. I enjoy that they kind of stick to the killer's POV for most of the movie. I appreciate the way they have structured this movie. I appreciate that they have given this, like, really brilliant style to an otherwise fairly conventional slasher movie, if I'm being honest. I love that. I love slasher movies. I don't care that the plot is, like, the same thing you've seen in every slasher movie. I care that they have taken the presentation of a traditional slasher and upped it. I actually really like avant-garde slasher movies. There are not enough. There are not enough artsy slasher films. So I was really happy to see this. I love an artsy slasher. And I think that's really all I have for this one. Like, it's an artsy slasher. And I love that about it. But, I don't know that I have much more to say beyond that. It's fun. I really liked it. If you are as much of an easy cinephile as I am, you too will love it. If you just want to see a really artsy slasher movie, here you go. Brilliant work. A+. And by A+, I mean B. Not B+, not B-, straight up B. I will say, this is maybe gonna confuse some people. I gave this one an 8, and the two movies I'm gonna put over it, I gave a light 8. So you might think maybe this should be a light 8 too, but I think In a Violent Nature is exactly what it needs to be. I think these next two movies had more potential, and they didn't quite live up to that potential, despite being very good movies. So In a Violent Nature gets an 8, because it is exactly what it needs to be. These are next two, they get light 8s because they could be better. That being said, these next two are better movies, which is why I have them ranked higher. Starting with Roger Eggers' Nosferatu. Just gonna say it, the Werner Herzog remake is better. There it is. I prefer Nosferatu the Vampire. Good movie. Still a very good movie, this Nosferatu. I would probably rank the original silent film last place on that list. I like the original silent film. I think it's got a good aesthetic, but there are, like, much better silent horror films out there. I vastly prefer something like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, or Hexen, or even Faust. Even Faust I think I liked more, although that one's arguably not horror. Anyways, Roger Eggers' Nosferatu. Roger Eggers? Robert Eggers? Am I saying it right? Hold on. I feel like I get his name wrong all the time. Robert Eggers. Alright, let me get that one correct. So, I think this film looks really nice. I really like the cinematography in this. I like their use of color in this. I'm kinda sick of seeing this style in every mildly artsy movie. There's this, like, kinda A24-ish style that this movie has that I am sick of seeing so much in, like, every, like, artsy movie, every quasi-indie production kinda just has to look like this same, like, A24 style. And, like, I hate to shit on it because this movie looks good, but, like, also I'm kinda sick of seeing movies that look like this. That's not my biggest problem with the movie, though. My biggest problem with the movie is that they've taken this sort of classic idea of, like, the vampire as, like, a physical manifestation of sexual desire preying on women, and made it very, very literal, and I think in making it as literal as they do, they almost muddle the metaphor a little bit, because I'm kind of like, what am I supposed to take away from this? That this woman is so horny it's killing people? Is that what's going on here? I just feel like if you're gonna take this approach of Count Orlok literally being a manifestation of her sexual desires, that you should, like, do more with that. I feel like they have made him, like, too much of, like, a literal thing. I gotta fix this. This is fucking ridiculous. I think the sun is going back and forth behind some clouds. This is what you get for using natural light. Hey guys, Future Matt here. I just wanted to sort of interject and say that I kind of had a discussion with my partner last night about, like, interpretations of Nosferatu, and I think they made a pretty compelling argument for Count Orlok as just sort of a metaphor for, like, as a manifestation of all of Mina's fears. Her name's not Mina, but that's the character she is in the Dracula story. All of Mina's fears about sex, and not just sexual desire, but sex in general, the broader idea of sex. And I'm sort of maybe rethinking, ooh, whoa, hello, what'd we do there? What is this? Why did that happen? Why are we super zoomed in? Don't do that. So I'm sort of reconsidering my position on the film, and I was thinking, like, does this make me like the film more? Do I agree with this take? And my honest answer is, I'd have to watch the movie again. But frankly, I think on a revisit, I could like Nosferatu a little more. I really should give this one a second watch. Give this one a second run through. I might like it more the second time around. We'll see. For now, I'm keeping what I said in. I'm keeping it where I had it, but just to sort of interject here, my opinion may change on a rewatch. But I gotta give the film a lot of credit. It is creepy. It's a scary movie. There is genuine suspense in this movie, and that doesn't happen very often. Movies don't typically creep me out quite as much as this Nosferatu did. There's a genuine sense of eeriness, of unease to this film that I really like. All of the performances in this are great. Standout Willem Dafoe, obviously. He has made it very clear he is one of our greatest working actors. It is utterly ridiculous that he has not received more Oscar nominations at this point. Even for this one, I think he could clean up in supporting actor. I think he could take it. There are other supporting actors I liked this year, but I think Dafoe clears them. I think Dafoe could win supporting actor if the Academy didn't hate horror. I also think Bill Skarsgård just does phenomenal as Count Orlok. He really nails the central performance of this film. They really got it down. They really made this character as creepy and fucked up as they possibly could. He works perfectly. I love him in this. Much better Nicholas Hoult Dracula movie than last year's. Yeah, no, Nosferatu, great movie. Could it have been better? Sure. Did I have maybe higher expectations? Honest, that's part of it. I think I came into this movie with higher expectations because I really like Robert Eggers and I really like Nosferatu, so maybe I expected a little more out of this movie than what it ultimately delivered. Still a great movie. Still really enjoyed it. Still highly recommend it. Don't forget to do that thing you almost forgot to do. Thanks, Jones Soda. See, that's a better cookie soda. Granted, it's sugar cookie and it's not trying to mix in the Coke flavor, but yeah, no, that's solid. I mean, they really got the flavor. That does taste like those sugar cookies you get at the store. The other light 8 that I think is a better movie than In a Violent Nature, The People's Joker from one Miss Vera Drew. I went out and I watched this in theaters so I could write about it for my zine, Keep Movies Weird, and then I just never made a second issue of Keep Movies Weird, so I never released that review. But I did write a full-length review of The People's Joker, and just have not put it out there. And now it's out on Blu-ray. It's been out for a while. You can easily watch the film now. I caught it in one of the very limited, they were kind of dodgy about screenings of this because Warner Brothers was kind of being a bastard about it. But you know what? It's out there. They got the movie released. I really enjoyed this film. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. It's very heartfelt. It's very real and down to earth. I think more people should misappropriate copywritten characters to make deeply personal experimental films about. I think my issues from it mostly come with the ending. I'm not really sure what the ending is supposed to mean, because so much of the rest of this film is so straightforward. It's so obvious what the rest of the movie is supposed to be about, that I get to the ending and I'm what is this? And granted, the final beat of the film I do think is pretty good, because it's sort of I don't have this great relationship with my mother, but here's this one nice memory I have with her. But before that, there's this scene with Mix Pixlix, and she's wishing for all this stuff, and I'm what is this supposed to represent? What is this supposed to literally be? Is this just a random wish fulfillment scene? What's going on here? I really didn't get the ending, and I feel there's a few parts of the film that are like that. There's a few parts of the film where I'm yeah, okay, so much of this other stuff is so directly literal, and then occasionally you'll just have a moment that I can't explain, that I don't really know what it means to Vera Drew and her life and the story she's trying to tell, and she's sniffing gas on SNL and explodes, And I'm like, what is this? What do you do? What does this mean? So that's a little weird to me, but otherwise a very fun movie. A very enjoyable film, deeply personal. I was talking about trans representation earlier. Phenomenal. This is straight from the horse's mouth. Just a trans person pretty directly putting their experience out there. I kind of liked the mixed media style. I like that it'll occasionally switch to, like, an animation, or it'll use, like, action figures for something. Granted, I think there are scenes they do that better in, and scenes they do that worse in. Like, if it means something, if it's somehow relevant to the story. Usually flashbacks. A lot of them are flashbacks, and I think it works for a flashback. I think it works if there's, like, a thematic reason to suddenly change styles, but sometimes it's just like, okay, this scene is animated, I guess. I like the mixed media style. I like how hectic and chaotic it is. I like how the whole thing takes place on these, like, amazing bulk-esque 3D green screen backgrounds. I like that it kind of leans into the cheapness of its own style. I don't know. It's a fun time. It feels right at home in the genre of queer cinema. This feels right at home in a lineage of, like, experimental queer cinema films. I appreciate the hell out of this movie. I love and respect this movie so much, and I have already ordered the Blu-ray because Vera Drew recorded a 20-minute DVD main menu, and I just kind of want to watch that. But unfortunately, I also bought it with a pre-order of something else, so now I gotta wait for the pre-order to come out for me to get that. Unfortunately, I cannot say if this is the best Joker movie of the year. I had Joker Part Due on my, like, 2024 catch-up list, but Mitzi wanted to watch that one, and I'm like, okay, we'll wait and watch it together, and we just never had time to watch it together. So, and now it's here. Maybe I will watch it before this video comes out, and I will record myself talking about it briefly, but, as of right now, I cannot say for sure if Vera Drew had the best Joker movie of the year or not. My guess is yes. Changing my mind about the list I wrote mid-recording. Let's talk about Furiosa, a Mad Max story. It is certainly no Fury Road. I don't even think it's really Road Warrior, but it is fun as hell. Like, let's be real. I don't know that they were ever going to top or even match Fury Road, so I'll accept a really good action movie. And hey, what do you know? Furiosa is a really good action movie. I had a lot of fun with this one. I will say, I could definitely tell Chris Hemsworth's Australian accent was fake in a sea of real Australian accents. But otherwise, I kind of love him and his character. I love that he rides around on a chariot of motorcycles. That's fucking hilarious. One of the highlights of the film, if I'm being quite frank. And God, it's just a fun movie. It's just such a fun movie. I don't know that I really have much else to, like, praise or criticize even. It's just fun as hell. I do have one thing I want to praise. The scenes that take place at night. There are scenes in the dark, but guess what? You can see the characters! It's not completely dark! It's not completely visually illegible! Oh my god! I get so pissed off at the fucking lighting departments nowadays. So many movies have such shit lighting. I have thrown out my voice yelling about how bad lighting is in movies today. Let me get a drink. Fuck. But yeah, I mean, it's a well-made film. It's a ton of fun. The action is great. I think both Anya Taylor-Joy and the girl who plays her at the start of the movie Both do a really good job as this character. I think it's cool that they did a Mad Max movie that didn't center around Max. Max might have like a very brief cameo in this movie, but mostly it is not about him. I also think it's kind of interesting that they like set up early in the film, you know, she has like this important tattoo on her arm and you're like, oh, and she has the robot arm in Fury Road, so they're gonna like cut her arm off so they have like the star. No, that's not what happens. That's she cuts off her own arm for unrelated reasons. And it felt like a clever subversion to me. I thought someone was gonna cut her arm off so they could get the map that she has. But no, they didn't do that. I thought that was an interesting subversion of things. But I mean, what else can I say? Great movie. Again, it's not Fury Road, but it lives up to the hype, I think. It can, like, hold its own. Most people were pretty impressed with this one. I don't think anyone was disappointed with this. Probably there's a few people who were, but I don't think anyone was really that disappointed with this. So, yeah, good work, Furiosa. George Miller still got it. You know, it takes him like 8 years to make a movie, but he's still got it. And now the movie I decided at the last second was actually better than Furiosa, Orion and the Dark. This is a new DreamWorks movie that I think went straight to Netflix. Written by Charlie Kaufman. Just like his last movie, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, went straight to Netflix. Kind of pisses me off. Because Netflix is fucking allergic to physical media. I need a Blu-ray of I'm Thinking of Ending Things. But no, it's trapped on a dying streaming service because Netflix is too jealous and too greedy to let their movies fall into the hands of physical media. Ugh. But for what it's worth, they do have Charlie Kaufman, and he is a great filmmaker. Oh, he didn't direct this one, he just wrote it, but he is the sole credited writer on this, and it feels exactly like what you expect from the phrase Charlie Kaufman kids movie. Like, the main character has all these anxieties, which is a very, Kaufman thing to do. Most of his characters have, like, deep anxieties. Granted, the main fear he's facing in this film is the fear of the dark, which is a much simpler fear than he explores in most of his other movies, but, like, come on, I'm not gonna show my 8-year-old Synecdoche, New York. This is something kids would like. This is taking a Charlie Kaufman film and bringing it down to a kid's level. Because it has that, like, anxiety element, it has that, like, fear of things going wrong, this like, bizarre fear of everything going on that Kaufman has in his other movies. And on top of that, the way it's structured, there is kind of like a weird meta thing going on with it that Charlie Kaufman also likes to do. Because just, like, it's like 20-30 minutes into the movie, all of a sudden they introduce that the movie up to that point is a story a father is telling his daughter. Like, it appears so abruptly and so late into the film, you're kind of like, whoa, okay, this is where we're going with that? But then that continues to be relevant throughout the story, and even plays into, like, the ending of the film, which I think is, like, really good. I really like how he's managed to end this film. And I'm like, yeah, no, this one's impressive all around. But, you know, in the middle there, you've got these, like, Pixar-esque... Like, honestly, it does kind of remind me of a Pixar film. It feels a little more Pixar than it does DreamWorks in everything but style. In everything but visual style, it feels more like a Pixar movie, because you're meeting, like, the real manifestations of all these things that go around at night, and there's, like, also there's a manifestation of the day too, and so all of that feels fairly Pixar-esque. Granted, this is Charlie Kaufman wrote it, but it is based on a book, and I'm sure he just took these characters over from the book. But I mean, it's a cute kids film. It's a really well done kids film that also has a lot of, it like checks all of the boxes to be a Charlie Kaufman movie as well, and I kind of enjoy that. I like Charlie Kaufman is one of the few people, like one of the few interesting auteurs that I would actually kind of like to see make a kids film. I think he does well with a kids film, actually. I don't know that I'd want to see a second kids film from him, but this one was good. This was like a fascinating exploration of like, what would it be like if Charlie Kaufman made a kids movie? God, these next two are also a somewhat controversial ranking. Ooh, boy. It's the villain backstory movie of the year, The Apprentice. Here's the thing, I really appreciate this movie because it has a clear vision of like Donald Trump and a story it wants to tell about Donald Trump and a lot it wants to communicate about Donald Trump, and none of it really feels like a rehash of like the shit liberals have been saying since like 2016. It feels like it has a very unique take on Trump, a very different take, but also a very, very unflattering take on Trump. They manage a little sympathy for him, but for the most part, it's like, oh yeah, no, this guy is a fucking monster. This dude is fucking horrendous. I mean, this movie has the balls to call him out for being a rapist. Like, I appreciate that. Like, not enough people are talking about this. Donald Trump is a fucking rapist. I also think it's interesting that they have a scene where they acknowledge Donald Trump's policies are really not substantively different from that of, like, Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump is not something new. He and the conservatives have always kind of been right along the same trail. At least for the past, at least since Reagan, Trump falls right into the Reagan era of conservatism. You know, the post-Reagan conservatism. He is not new. He is not a new phenomenon. He very much is just another conservative. I think Sebastian Stan does phenomenal in this movie. He is giving such a good performance, and he's pulling off just enough Trump that it doesn't feel like a cartoon, it doesn't feel like a parody, it feels like, oh, this is a real person and how this real person actually talks, which, frankly, is a skill I think the real Donald Trump has kind of lost. I think Trump is really leaning into a more exaggerated persona. I think there's a lot of fakeness to the way Trump talks now. There's a lot of subtlety that has been lost over the years that I think Sebastian Stan really captures in this movie. I hope he gets Best Actor, honestly. He is my front runner for Best Actor. He probably won't, but he's my pick. Jeremy Strong also does pretty good, but it's a character I feel like I have seen before in film. I enjoy him well enough in this, but like he did, like, it's a very obvious character. It's a very well-worn character. Just kind of this, like, ruthless business guy who teaches Trump all the ways to, like, fuck other people over. And then, of course, is shocked when Trump fucks him over. Who could have seen this coming? I do think there's stuff that doesn't need to be in there. Like, they're painting this very deliberate portrait of Trump, and there's stuff in there that just doesn't add to it. Like, I appreciate them for not just giving us his whole fucking life story, but there's still, like, these small bits where I feel like you didn't need that. That is not adding to the picture of Trump you were trying to capture. I honestly think you could have cut Freddie Trump from this movie entirely. I don't think Freddie adds anything to the movie. Maybe it, like, humanizes Donald a little bit, but, like, not even that much. I don't know. I talked to my friend Michael about this, and Michael was like, oh, I just wish they did more with him. Like, he agreed, like, the way they use Freddy, not that great, but he's like, I wish there was more of him. I wish they had, like, developed that a little further, and maybe that would work, too. Maybe you could develop him into a more interesting character, but as is, it just feels like, I don't know, like, it doesn't add anything to the movie. It just makes it, like, a little too long, frankly. But that's my only real minor complaint. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the film. I think it's got a really good sense of style, a really good presentation. I think the performances are great. I think what it has to say about Trump is great. Just a really solid film. I really liked this one. I hope it wins a few awards at the Oscars. It's not even up for Best Picture, which is kind of weird, but I do kind of hope it wins Best Actor. And here's the controversial thing, because right above that, I'm putting Joel Haver's The Diarrhea Brothers Save the Day. Here's the thing. The Apprentice is a smarter movie. It's a better made movie. It's a movie with a lot more to say. But if you really pressed me, if you were like, hey Matt, which one of these movies would you rather watch again? I'm gonna pick Diarrhea Brothers every single fucking time. Because this movie is fucking hilarious. They just don't make good, like, solid gag after gag after gag comedies like this anymore. Like, at least not in the mainstream. I know we just got Hundreds of Beavers, and, like, Hundreds of Beavers I would also classify as that. This is, like, independent comedy renaissance. We need it. Like, Hollywood is not providing the comedy films we need. It's time for us to take up arms and start making Hundreds of Beavers and Diarrhea Brothers Save the Day. Don't let the title and premise scare you. It is about some brothers who are, like, diarrhea delivery men. They deliver barrels full of diarrhea. No diarrhea is actually shown on screen in the movie. Like, you don't have to worry about seeing anyone, like, covered in diarrhea or doing anything gross with diarrhea. You don't have to look at the diarrhea. Now, if hearing it brought up is gonna gross you out, you probably already skipped this segment because I've mentioned diarrhea a lot at this point. But, you know, if hearing about it is gonna bother you, maybe you can skip this one. But if it's only looking at it that bothers you, don't worry, there's no diarrhea in this film. This is one of 3 movies I watched from Joel Haver this year. He put out 12 movies in 2024, which is astounding to me. I am really impressed that he got those done. He put out 12 movies last year, and the 3 I saw were, like, really good. So I do wanna go through and watch some more of those, but I only got around to 3 of them before the end of the year. But all 3 were great. I really enjoyed all of them, and I am really impressed with Joel Haver's ability to make 12 movies in a year. This is his, like, really goofy, kinda dumb comedy. I don't think he would disagree with me calling this dumb. Like, it's very deliberately dumb. There is, like, a humor to how fucking dumb this movie gets, and how, like, dumb the main characters are, you know? Because, I mean, they're diarrhea delivery men who aren't good at their job, and also do a job that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's kind of a dumb premise. It's kind of a dumb job for them to have, and they don't seem to acknowledge that it's a dumb job for them to have. I don't know, man. This movie is so fucking funny. This movie is hilarious. It is joke after joke after joke after joke. Every bit, even the story is a joke. Like, every bit of this movie is fucking hilarious. I highly recommend this one. I think it's an easy contender for the funniest movie of 2024. With the tiny asterisk that some people are calling Hundreds of Beavers a 2024 movie. I am not counting Hundreds of Beavers as a 2024 movie because I saw it in theaters in 2023. So I covered it already in my Movies of 2023 video. But that's my little asterisk. I would say it's the funniest movie of 2024, provided you don't count Hundreds of Beavers as a 2024 movie, which I do not. I call it a 2023 movie. Diarrhea Brothers Save the Day. Very funny. I recommend it. I saw the TV Glow. Boy, what an amazing film. Like, it's visually beautiful movie. Like, one of the best looking movies of the year. I really liked this one. Look, Vera Drew might have made the best Joker movie of the year, but she did not make the best movie about a nostalgic 90s property that helped someone realize they were trans. Because that goes directly to I Saw the TV Glow. Just a beautiful film, fascinating story, really interesting. I'm glad I kind of knew about the trans angle going into this, because when you look at it through that lens, like, it all becomes really obvious. But at the same time, I feel like you could watch this movie and, like, not even, like, pick up on the like, trans allegory. I think you could really, like, interpret this in quite a few different ways. Even if, like, the trans allegory is the most obvious thing. They do a really good job capturing the aesthetic of, like, 90s TV shows in this. Like, the commercials for the, oh, what is it called? The Pink Underground? The pink something. The pink opaque. There it is. The commercial for the Pink Opaque looks like it was taken directly from the 90s. It looks like a real show. Fred Durst is in this movie. Fred Durst plays the main character's dad, which is hilarious. And I mean, between this film and writing the line, "Hey ladies, hey fellas, and all the people who don't give a fuck," no one has done more for the trans community. No one in nu metal has done more for the trans community than Fred Durst. I will say, the final shot of the movie threw me off a little, because, like, up to that point, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm following along, I get what you're putting down, and then the final shot kinda... it didn't seem right. It didn't seem like how the movie should have ended. The movie should have ended in the Pink Opaque, right? It should have ended with him waking up in the Pink Opaque, right? That's the implication of the rest of the movie, and instead he, like, doesn't. The final shot of this movie kind of leaves me scratching my head, but everything else I loved. I really enjoyed this one. Alright, we're moving up into the strong 8, so this is like the really good stuff from this year. Starting us off with The Wild Robot. Oh my god, I can't believe DreamWorks got away with this. I can't believe DreamWorks made such a, like, simple, grounded, like, not really that big movie. I almost wonder what kids think of this movie, because I mean, it's got cute animals. I'm sure kids like the cute animals, but it's it's a little mature, because it's a little slow, it's a little quiet, it's a little tame. It almost feels like a more adult movie. Certainly more so than what DreamWorks usually puts out. This feels way more mature than, like, any DreamWorks film I can think of, and it's not like DreamWorks, like, okay, yeah, they can be incredibly stupid, incredibly crass, incredibly immature. They have some, like, solid stuff in there. I don't think anything is like, this grounded and, like, Low-key, honestly. Low-key is the word I'm looking for here. It's such a simple, like, just animals kind of hanging out in the woods. There's a little action near the end. There is some stuff that I think would keep kids engaged. And honestly, like, it's funny. The characters are funny. There's cute animals doing funny jokes. I don't know, it's a movie that does not need to throw something in your face every 10 minutes. It just sort of lets this very simple story play out. This very, like, quiet, downbeat story play out. Low-key. Low-key is the word I'm looking for. It's a very low-key movie, but that's what's really enjoyable about it. And I just kind of think adults will like this more than kids. At least adults with the maturity to go, yeah, I'm prepared to watch an animated movie and I don't feel any shame in that. I definitely think some adults think they're too good for an animated film, but I think this is an exception. I think this is a very good kids film, a very simple kids film that really works. And speaking of that, that is also true of the very next film I have on the list, Flow. This one is even more low-key, this one is even slower, and frankly, I don't know how kids would respond to this, because it's not even as, like, wild and goofy as The Wild Robot. And The Wild Robot was a pretty low-key movie. This is no talking. This is animals floating down a river in a boat and learning to work together. And I think it's really beautiful what they've managed to accomplish with this film. I'm really impressed with what happens in this film. I'm very impressed with this film. I like this film a lot. I think it's an adorable movie. I think they've really made something interesting out of very little. With like so little going on, they've still managed to make a very interesting, very captivating movie. I do think it helps a little that the cat in this movie vaguely resembles my own cat, so I can kind of think about my own cat watching this, and I like her a lot, so this is the Razzle Dazzle movie. Razzle Dazzle has some spots, this cat is all black, but otherwise they're very similar looking animals, so as far as I'm concerned, this right here is the Razzle Dazzle movie. Alright, I'm interjecting again because I do think this is important, and I somehow just forgot to mention it. It's the reason this film is a strong 8 and not a 9. I really don't know what the climax of this movie is supposed to be. I don't know what's going on in the climax of the movie. There's this bird they've been hanging out with the whole time, and he, like, sacrifices himself to God or aliens or something. He gets, like, turned into light, and that stops the flooding. I don't get it. I don't get the ending of this movie. But, everything else, wonderful. Brilliant film. I don't know, they have been taking Best Animated Feature a little more seriously lately, so they might actually give it to Flow, and I would actually be very happy with that. But, I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath because Pixar put out a good movie this year. I'll absolutely let Pixar have this one. I will not be disappointed by Pixar winning this year, but we'll get there in a second. Right above that, I'm dropping Anora, my frontrunner for Best Picture. I really hope this one wins. It definitely seems like it has a chance, but so does Emilia Perez, and that's a very good ending, bad ending situation. There is, of course, the neutral ending of them picking either The Brutalist or Wicked. I think both of those have potential to take home Best Picture. The Brutalist more so than Wicked. Wicked is definitely the dark horse in that race. I think The Brutalist has a shot, but I think it's probably gonna be Anora or Emilia Perez, which is kind of insane that the two frontrunners are the most deserving and the least deserving nominees. Anyways, I really loved Anora. I did talk about it extensively already, but it's such a fun movie, and it definitely has, like, something to say about, like, the way people, about like, love, about money, about sex workers and rich people, and I just think, on top of that, it's a really good time. It's really fun watching all of this play out. I enjoy what happens in this movie. Great performances. Would not be disappointed to see Mickey, whatever her last name is, win Best Actress for this. I don't know I don't know how likely she is to win that, but I would not be upset to see her win. I would be very happy to see her win for this. Yeah, I mean, I already kind of covered this one, and I think I got it the first time. This is a really good movie. Far from my favorite of the film of the year. I mean, we've got, 6 other movies to discuss, but, it was a good time. It was a really good time with this movie. I'm glad something this good is up for Best Picture this year, because, boy, it's kind of a weak lineup this year, isn't it? Moving right along, here we are at Inside Out 2. I was skeptical of this one. I was like, oh man, Pixar's putting out a sequel to Inside Out, and they're doing it now when they're like kind of at not a low point really, but like during the 2010s they were at least hit or miss. This decade they've been like mostly mediocre. Like they have some good movies from this decade, but like I really did not trust them to make an Inside Out sequel, but you know what? Color me pleasantly surprised. They fucking nailed it. They got it absolutely right. This is just as good as the original Inside Out. This stands right alongside the original Inside Out. I loved how fast-paced it was. I loved, like, the comedy, the physical comedy in this movie, just, like, never stops. They're always going. It's so good. I like how focused on Riley this movie is. I feel like this movie focuses on Riley as a character a lot more than the first movie did, because I feel like the first movie was maybe more of Joy's journey, where I feel like Riley is a lot more important to the journey of this movie. I also really like that they didn't regress Joy's character at all, actually. Like, she feels like she has retained the message of the first movie, and I cannot tell you how many sequels fuck that up. So I was really impressed that Joy managed to retain what she had learned from the first Inside Out. And, overall, this is just a really fun, enjoyable, well-animated movie. You did it, Pixar. You made something on par with, like, your classic era again. Hey, look, Luca, good movie. Doesn't really feel like a Pixar movie, it's a good movie, but it's a good movie I feel like any studio probably could have made. Inside Out 2 is the first film they have put out, like, this decade that feels like it belongs with, like, the classic era Pixar. It's the first time in a long time I have felt like this is like, oh, this is a Pixar movie. This is like a classic Pixar movie. So yeah, color me impressed. I was not expecting much from Inside Out 2, but it delivered. It really did deliver. I was really impressed with this one. Honestly, would not be that upset if it won Best Animated Feature. Like I said back in like 2020, I didn't want Soul to win, even though it maybe kinda deserved it, just because, like, they always give it to Pixar. I'm sick of them always giving it to Pixar. They've taken a few years off. They have given it to some very deserving, non-Pixar, non-even, like, mainstream movies. Like, a little more off-the-beaten-path movies. So I gotta give them a little credit. They've been doing a lot better, and I'd kind of be okay with them picking Inside Out 2 for Best Animated Feature. I would be a lot more impressed with them if it was Flow or even Wild Robot, but I'd be absolutely fine with them picking Inside Out 2. MaXXXine, the third movie in the X trilogy. It's kind of astounding how different they have managed to make all three films in this series. Like, X was a pretty straightforward, like, a slasher movie taking place while they're filming a porno, and like, haha, isn't it wild, and kind of like a Tobe Hooper riff. Clearly they're pulling from a lot of different Tobe Hooper movies with that one. Then Pearl was like a pretty fascinating character study. It was more about Pearl as a person, Pearl as a character, and like all the shit she's been through, and like how fucked up she is as a person, all of her like weird sexual hang-ups and all that. It's a fascinating character study that really gives Mia Goth the opportunity to just act her heart out. She is so good in that movie. And then MaXXXine clearly has a little more money to throw around, so there's like some bigger names on this one. Kevin Bacon plays a fairly major character in the film. So it's a bigger production, and it's 80s sleazecore, right? Where X was sort of 70s Tobe Hooper vibe. This is like 80s LA sleazecore. This belongs right alongside like Angel or Vice Squad, stuff like that. Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. That's kind of a parody. I like Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers because it's satirical. It's like a really funny parody movie, I think. MaXXXine, it's just fun as hell. It's just such a fun little movie. It takes this sort of like the sexual repression of like, Protestant America that's kind of been lingering in the background of the franchise up to this point and really pulls it to the forefront. And I do think it kind of doesn't have anything to say about that. I do think it's just kind of something the film is like dropping for aesthetic reasons. Look, it's the sexually repressed Protestants. They're the ones behind all this. They're doing all this evil shit, and it's like, okay, but like, do you have anything to say about it? Do you want to like explore those ideas any deeper? And no, they don't. They're just there because like, it's a crazy fucked up movie, yo. And you know what? That's all it really needs to be. It's an enjoyable slasher movie. I don't know what else to tell you. It's fun, it's sleazy, the performances are all really good, it's well shot, it's a good time. I don't think it needs that commentary. I just feel like maybe it could have elevated itself a little bit if it like had something to say about all of that. But like, whatever. Maybe I'm demanding too much out of this film. Like, I liked it. I liked it exactly as is. I cannot complain too much about this one. I just think it had the opportunity to be more. It had an opportunity to, like, comment on some of the stuff it was depicting, and it just chose not to. But you know what? Fun movie. If you like the X movies, you'll probably like this one. I know some people who only like Pearl. Whatever. I like all three movies. I am a big fan of all three movies in this series. Honestly, I don't think X is that deep. Like, I feel like people treat X like it's got so much going on. No, it doesn't. X is a movie about how cool it is to have sex and violence in your movie. And I agree. It is, in fact, really cool to have sex and violence in your movie. And MaXXXine continues that trend. Granted, there's a lot less sex in this one. There's a lot less sex in this one than previous films, but, you know, the idea of sex is still lingering in there. I want to live in whatever world this is, that a sequel to a satanic horror film starring a porn star and directed by a woman, incidentally, can become the biggest movie in the country. That sounds... I want to live in that reality. Sounds awesome. At number 4, it's Love Lies Bleeding, the super sapphic film starring one Miss Kristen Stewart of Twilight fame. Shout out to Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson for proving that they can, in fact, act when they're not in a Twilight movie. I really like this movie. This is such a fun, wild, over-the-top movie. Fun characters, fun premise. There's some really weird moments. This movie is not afraid to get kinda out there, honestly. I just think it's a good time all around. I do have a little bit of an issue with how it ends, because, like, they make a big deal about Kristen Stewart's girlfriend in the movie, like, overdoing it with the steroids and like, having roid rage issues, and they don't really resolve that by the end. She's not really off the juice by the end of the movie, and so it kind of seems like not the safest relationship, but at the same time, I think it's easy to just imagine, like, oh, and they lived happily ever after, she kicked the habit, nothing bad ever happened again. But it is weird how much attention they draw to, like, steroids being a problem, and then she's not off them by the end. In fact, they kind of imply that the roid rage helped her, like, defeat Kristen Stewart's evil crime dad, played by Ed Harris, who's doing great in this movie, by the way. I fucking love Ed Harris in this movie. It's just a fun lesbian crime thriller, you know, belongs right up there alongside, like, Bound. Just a really fun movie. And, you know what? Lots of muscular women in this movie, and that is always a plus, so good work. I really liked Love Lies Bleeding. It was my favorite studio film of the movie. Favorite, like, big American studio film of the year. 'Cause from here on out, we've got mostly kind of obscure stuff. Granted, this next one is up for Best Animated Feature. It's Adam Elliott's Memoir of a Snail. Massive props to Adam Elliott for being the first director I covered on a filmography of one to produce a second movie. He finally did it. It's another movie from the director of Mary and Max, and it's a lot like Mary and Max. I think I like Mary and Max a little more. I think the fact that it's ping-ponging back and forth between, like, Max and Mary, that there's, like, these two characters it has to work with, that helps balance it a little more. I think it's a much funnier movie, where Memoir of a Snail, like, it's focused on this one girl, and she just keeps having bad things happen to her, and it's like, oh man, wow, okay. And it mixes that in with, like, plenty of good humor, plenty of fun moments, plenty of fun characters, but, like, I don't know, I feel like it's both sadder than Mary and Max, which is already a pretty sad film, and less funny than Mary and Max, but it is still, like, I don't know, it works. Like, I've got it up here as my third favorite movie of the year. I gave it a 9. It's a good fucking movie. It's just, it's not as good. If you ask me which is better, Mary and Max or Memoir of a Snail, it's Mary and Max, But Memoir of a Snail, also very good. I think Memoir of a Snail is more technically impressive. It's clear that he has, like, really enhanced his craft since Marion Max. And I mean, he took, what, like, 11 years? Maybe more than that. Hold on. God, like 16 years? 16 years to make this, I think? 16 years in the making? Granted, I'm sure he wasn't making this movie that whole time, but still, like, he took his time with this one, and he's definitely gotten better, and probably has more money at his disposal with this one because of Marion Max. So, it is a technically better movie than Marion Max. I do think I prefer Marion Max, but still, both really great movies. Like, if you love Marion Max, check out Memoir of a Snail, because Memoir of a Snail is like right on par with it. It is more of what made Marion Max the delightful little movie it is. You can really tell this is the same guy who made Marion Max. And incidentally, if you just watched Memoir of a Snail because it's like up for Best Animated Feature this year and you've never seen Marion Max, holy shit, go watch Marion Max. I love that movie. Michael, who I have on the channel all the time, loves that movie. I think he called it like one of his top 5 movies. I think it's on his top 4 on Letterboxd. But between the two of us, we've talked about Marion Max like 5 or 6 times on both of our between our two channels. So yeah, we're big Marion Max fans. I cannot recommend that film highly enough. And Memoir of a Snail is more of the same. It is every bit what made me fall in love with Marion Max, and that's why I love this film too. Just a great movie. It's got like a great message. It's got some great moments. It's got some really funny characters. Adam Elliott is really good at coming up with like funny, eccentric characters to put in his movies, and he's got quite a few here. Because I've also watched his short films, and he does that pretty well in his short films. I will recommend his short films as well if you're into this style of movie. Yeah, Memoir of a Snail, great film. I don't think it stands a chance at winning Best Animated Feature, but if it does, I will give the Academy so much fucking credit, because holy shit, this movie rules. That's all of that. I am not getting up to get another soda because there are 2 more movies on this list. And, incidentally, it's the 2 other Joel Haver movies I watched this year, starting with Hiccups, his romantic comedy film, which, like, I really gotta compliment his range. Like, he swings wildly with all of those. Like, Diarrhea Brothers is a pretty straightforward comedy. The other film I have on here, it's this really wild, really, like, satirical thing. Hiccups is a very grounded, very down-to-earth romantic comedy. It honestly reminds me of Annie Hall. Like, that is the easiest comparison for this movie. It is Annie Hall if it was made by a YouTuber in the year 2024. It just, it feels like this very real relationship between 2 very real characters. It's so funny. It's so funny, but at the same time, there's like a genuinely good romance to it, and there's like all these like really gut-wrenching emotional parts, and it's everything you want out of a romance. Like, I think romantic comedy is a genre that more often than not produces something I do not care about and do not want to see. I think it is exceptionally rare to see like a truly great a romantic comedy, and this is that. This is a truly great romantic comedy, and it's free on YouTube. So go watch Hiccups. Go fucking watch Joel Haver's Hiccups, because holy shit, this is like one of the best romantic comedies I have ever seen, period. Like, full stop, this is one of the best romantic comedies I have ever seen in my life. And while you're over on Joel Haver's channel, you should also check out his other film, Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. I think these two are close. I even could see an argument that, like, Hiccups deserves it more. I think mainstream audiences will maybe respond a little better to Hiccups than Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. But I really loved Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. Shout out once again to Michael. Michael was the one who showed me this and got me interested in watching Joel Haver's other movies. Banner year for Joel Haver, man. Like, he got, not only did he get 12 movies out, he was also on Smiling Friends this year. So he really had a lot going on in 2024. Granted, I'm sure he did his stuff for Smiling Friends like a year or two ago, because animation takes fucking forever. But, you know, he was on Smiling Friends, and he made some of the best movies to come out in 2024. Like, it's really disappointing to me that he is not more popular than he is, because these are some of the best movies of the... My favorite movie of the year was Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. This is like a stop-motion animated film he made with a bunch of, like, random toys and action figures he had around, and they don't really hide how they're doing it that much. Like, characters will blatantly have sticky putty stuck to their feet and to their hands and stuff, but you know what, it doesn't fucking matter, because this movie is so batshit insane. Like, so much is going on with this movie. Really, my biggest criticism of it is that it, like, almost goes on too long. Like, it's a 2.5 hour movie, and you're kind of like, woof, okay, dial it back a little, maybe? But I don't know, it's still such a good movie. It's such an entertaining movie. It's so wild and so fun and so satirical. Like, the things it's kind of commenting on, I think are really fascinating. I think it has some, like, really fascinating social commentary on top of being really funny and like genuinely kind of well written. Like, like, the story is good. The story is really good. I don't know. I loved it. I loved Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. This movie is fucking astounding. It's my favorite movie of 2024. I'm sorry. That's like, it's such an obscure pick, but it's gotta be my number one. Like, I did not see a single movie this year that I liked nearly as much as Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. Shout out to Joel Haver for making my 2 favorite movies of the year. I should watch more. Who knows, maybe if I watch all 12 of his movies, I'll find one I like more than Hello, My Beautiful Creatures. Either way, Joel Haver absolutely fucking tops the list this year. Massive shout out to Joel Haver. I highly recommend you check out his films. At least the 3 I've mentioned in here. I've heard good things about Anyone Else But Me. That was the other one I wanted to check out but never quite got around to. But I mean, I like these enough. I might end up watching all 12 movies he made. Like, genuinely, I might end up watching all 12 movies he's made. Anyways, that was really long. It took forever. My voice is dying. I think I need to end this. Thank you everyone for watching. Let me know what your favorite movies of the year were in the comments. What movies I missed that you think I should watch, and what movies I think I gave a bad review to. What movie, let's disagree with me. Start an argument in the comments. Get really mad. Be mean in the comments. Leave some really nasty shit down there. Until next time, I'm Matt. Have a nice day.